December 19th, 2024. I released my base, the Sergeant Shack, which today is my most viewed and appreciated base on my channel, and I've seen all the comments about another version of this base. And today, December 19th, 2025, it's time for me to show you the Sergeant Shack Maxi. Now I know you all are very eager to see this absolute beauty of a base, however this is one thing I have to show you before the tour. Rust Clash is the most exciting case battle site in the Rust space. The main attraction is their case battles where you can face off against other players in intense PvP openings and walk away with massive wins. But Rust Clash doesn't stop there. They also have a wide variety of game modes like Tiles, Plinko, Mines, Crash and the classic Upgrader, each one adding its own unique thrill. Whether you're uncovering tiles, watching the multiplayer climb, or chasing a 10,000x Plinko ball, there's always action. Depositing couldn't be easier. You can use cards, PayPal, gift cards and others, or go crypto with Bitcoin and many more. When it's time to cash out, Rust Clash gives you full flexibility. You can withdraw directly to crypto, Rust skins, or even transfer your balance to their sister sites. And here's the best part. When you sign up using my code SHREDDED, you'll instantly unlock 3 free cases plus a 5% bonus on every deposit daily up to 100 gems. That means more cases, more battles and more chances to win. Alright, starting off the tour we have a bunkered external. To open it, place a roof. To the right there's a box where you store your loot, and to the left is a TC behind a single door and the TC upkeep. And this is times 2 as there's 2 externals. To disconnect the TC, just break this half wall here. And to reconnect it, you have to place back the half wall, upgrade it to wood, and then place back the frame. And then of course to close the bunker, just break the twig. Super easy and super effective external to have, especially early game. Going to one of our 2 gatehouses, you can see I went for simplicity and visibility. In here you have great visibility for anyone door camping or anything happening outside, as well as Petrico peaks perfectly into the furnace wall on both sides. And then above the gatehouse we have some drop boxes. On either side we have turrets behind some chain link to protect the furnace wall. And some sneaky shotgun traps to reduce raiders' mobility in the compound. This one is especially sneaky. You also have this peak here where you can defend if raiders are breaking the walls. And also more shotgun traps here, which you can't see unless it's too late. You will also notice that the bed pod is funneled by a double door, so when the double door is open you can't get through. In the bed pod there is space for 3 beds and a small box for some meds. Behind the garage door is the locker. You also have these amazing Petrico peaks, which I can showcase here. As you can see, when you're standing in the peak you're almost invisible to the raider, making it very hard to shoot back. Going through this double door you get into one of the 2 mobility chutes, and then continuing through these doors we have some furnaces, and then through the single door airlock we get into our starter. In the starter you have some furnaces, bags, tier 2 workbench, some boxes where you can store extra materials, and the TC compartment where you have 5 boxes and the main TC upkeep. And remember, this is with the whole starter being armored, all the armored doors in the open core, and all armored doors into the starter. And before you leave that negative comment or close the video about it only being 5 doors to TC, and well, that is because that this is supposed to be like a rocket and time wasting trap. Sure, you might keep some extra materials here, but your main loot should be in the open core or the TC bunkers, meaning that if you have armored doors like in the tour, raiders will waste 19 to 25 rockets for nothing, which gives you time to either get online and defend or seal. Also, you should know 90% of my bases are always tested before uploading to see if they actually work in a wipe. And this exact trap worked perfectly in a wipe, where we were getting offline, but they went for a starter first and then had to get more rockets, which gave me the opportunity to get online and come from above here into this peak here, and then placing down a new door, sealing the raid while losing 0 loot. So yeah, this trap actually works in a wipe. Anyways, continuing the tour, we can go up through the mobility chute. Up here there's an ankle biter into open core, and if raiders get control over this floor, you can defend for this peak, and the same goes for the floor above. Going up one more floor, we have some respawns and a locker, but also a turret defending the mobility, and through the garage door to the right is the open core. The open core has 4 of these 6-box loot rooms with armored doors in front of them, as well as 2 furnace spots. There's also these Dropbox loot rooms, which is also where you have your 2 batteries. You can fit a tier 3 in the middle with some vending machines behind the window to flex loot. There's 2 turret pods in the open core, but also more rocket and time wasting traps. As you can see, this armor is exposed. That is to lure raiders to go through here, as they might think that this is your main loot or a weak point in the base. If the raiders take the bait, however, it opens up for the turrets in the open core, which will be slightly protected by these ramps, and it opens up angles to defend from. This is not a very good angle, but if you were to go to the other side, you will see that you have an amazing peak that overlooks the breach. But you can also defend from the ankle biter in the mobility chute on either side. And even though they blew through the wall, they still have to spend 8 more rockets to get into the open core because of the high ramps. And it's only the top 2 boxes that are exposed, but the other 4 are still safe behind the armored wall and an armored door. One thing that is important to be said, however, is that you can't seal this wall from this angle, unfortunately. You have to seal it from the outside, which is the only negative thing with this trap. Up here on the 4th floor is the kind of shooting floor area, where there's these ramp peaks I showed earlier, but also these door peaks, which I know is an old meta peak that isn't very good. However, again, trust me boys, this peak is great against, for example, a raid base as shown here. When anyone runs up, you have a super good angle on them to crouch spray them, while being very hard to spot in time to shoot back. Behind this peak is a roof retake, and all these peaks are on 4 sides of the base, and if you're wondering why this isn't a window peak, it's because every time we try to peek the raiders through the window peak, we would get insta-HV'd, so therefore we added doors instead, so you can line up your shot on the raider, and when they aren't looking at you, you can open the door and kill them, and then close it back up again to heal or reload. Also, you have more space for more lockers or beds up on this floor. However, in our experience, these drop boxes pretty much did the job, which I highly recommend you keep meds and sealing materials, as that was very clutch for us. At this point, it's time to check out the roof. Up on the roof, there's up to 4 bed respawns and loads of different peaks. On 2 sides there's the classic offset peak, but slightly better. You have a perfect peak to defend the furnace wall if the raiders breach the compound walls. You might be wondering why there's ramps on either side of the peak, and that is because the problem I always face with this peak is that you can't see anything down below, only to the sides. But with these ramps you can go up and down to see what's happening below the floor, which you can't otherwise with this peak, making it much better and more versatile. There's also 4 ramp peaks that are excellent at peeking far out. As you can see, it's very open from your point of view. And you might think that this peak is old and boring, however this spot was a key point at buying us time during a raid, as I stood here with a pot helmet and L9 and raiders could not do much as the gap only shows my head, and because I have a pot helmet it's very hard to spray down. This part of the roof is something I was inspired by Dust Space the Anvil, and it's of the funneled compound bed pod. Basically the siren lights create a bridge to the other side, but still having a gap for a waterfall from your roof. So if you take heli for example, you can quickly go from your roof to loot or defend it. The other side is also where you have your shops, and relax, you can't loot it through these peaks, we have tested it, but also these peaks create like a crow's nest or tight lookout peak that is very hard to shoot back at but give you a great angle to crouch spray. This also holds up your wind turbines, and the roof is protected by 2 turrets that have MLRS protection. I wanna take this time to quickly say thank you for this last year. I know I have not been very active, especially the first 9 months, and the channel has seen worse performance the last month. However, I am still very grateful to all of you who take your time to watch these videos. Merry Christmas! You can start off the tutorial with a regular 2x1 and a single door airlock. However, instead of walling in a 2x1 like normal, we place a half circle and wall that in. This is so we can fit 4 more boxes in the starter, a workbench and some more furnaces. You can then wall in the TC 1x1 and place down a TC and your doors. Also don't forget about the bags. You can then place down some door frames and the shelf for the 4-box loot room and the shelf in the TC. And I know some of you don't have the barrel DLC, but I was able to do a 5-box loot room in the TC like you're able to do with barrels. So don't worry if you don't own the DLC. We can also fit a barbecue and 2 small boxes in the TC compartment just to maximize storage. At this point you want to start getting some guns, so you can slap down your tier 1 workbench. And place down the 4 boxes in the 4-box loot room next to the TC. Also for some added coziness you can add a bear rug and 2 double doors for some more protection. At this point the starter is almost finished, however we want to add some more furnaces. So on the single door airlock we add 2 more triangles, then you can wall it in, place a double door frame, a roof, the double door, and then in the triangle there goes 3 more furnaces. At this point it's time to grab the tools so you can farm to build up the next part of the base. Before we get to the mobility chute, we want to add some honeycomb. So on the square side of the 2x1 we add some triangle honeycomb. At this point you can go back to your front entrance, add a square, 2 triangles and wall it in. We can add a double door in this socket here, and to the right we do a single door peak to the next floor. And on the opposite side we build a jump up. The second floor of the mobility chute is basically identical to the first floor, however we don't add a double door in the same socket, and to the right we are gonna have a window peek into the open core, but for now we're gonna add it in wood. Don't worry, we will chop this out later. The third floor again is basically identical to the second floor, however instead of the wood where the window would go, we are gonna have a double door into the open core. Also, we're not gonna add another roof peak here, as this is where a turret will go later. For now there's no jump up to the mobility chute, so we're gonna add some half walls here, add some boxes because you won't be able to access this later, close it up, and this will later be a peak and some drop boxes in the open core. At this point we're just gonna do the exact same thing we just did, but on the opposite side. Remember to only upgrade this to wood. Also remember to place these boxes now, as you won't be able to do it later. At this point the mobility chutes are done and we can start adding the externals. Before we add the externals, we're gonna have to add the foundations of the funnel bedroom. Start by going out 5 squares and end with a triangle. Go ahead and delete all the squares and then build back with triangle half moons. Before building this triangle, you should instead add a square and then build off 2 triangles on each side of the square. Delete all the triangles except one of the triangles of the square, because this is where you'll build the external. Go ahead and upgrade this and then close it, because this is where your locker will be in the bed pod. Add a frame for some stability and then we can add the external. Start with 1 triangle foundation and build out 3 squares. End it with 3 triangles, but delete one of them. This is how it should look like. We can go ahead and upgrade the external to its final grade, as it's pretty cheap and good to have up and running early in a wipe. We can place a TC on the left hand side here, and then place a single door frame and add a door to it. Remember to upgrade the single door frame to metal. Add a half wall shelf, and on the top we should add a half wall in wood, and on the bottom there should be a box. That's where you'll store all the loot in the bunker. Next up we can add the opposite part of the bunker. Grab a square foundation and try to clip one of the sides into the foundations of the bunker. You know it's correct if this wall here is at 78 or 79% stability. This is a really important step. Also, if you are struggling with this part and find it pretty confusing, I have a very easy guide on it on my channel. I'll link it in the description. Next we're gonna wanna add the anti-grief system to the bunker. Start by going 1 triangle, 1 square and another triangle of the square foundation, and then build back 1 triangle, 1 square and then 1 triangle. This triangle you'll upgrade to armored. Also remember to upgrade this to metal, and then build off 1 more triangle foundation and a door frame. Remember to also upgrade this to metal. This will ensure that if someone were to offside the foundation of your bunker, you can easily place it back. Then you can reconnect it with the bed pod, and there you go, you have one of your externals. Now it's just time to do the other side. Again, just to remind you, this wall needs to be at 78 or 79% stability, otherwise the bunker won't work. At this point you have your mobility chute and externals. Now it's just time for the open core. We're gonna start by upgrading some of the triangle honeycomb we added earlier to the 2x1, as you won't be able to access this later. Now we're gonna add some more honeycomb to the 2x1. This can for now be stone, as you will be able to upgrade this later. At this point we're gonna start adding the walls of the open core. Start by adding all these walls here. And going up one more floor. This wall you can upgrade and then rotate, as this will be the loot rooms in the open core. Go ahead and do the exact same on the opposite side. Now we can start working on the pancake layer and the loot rooms in the open core. Start by placing these half walls here, which will later be your furnace spots. Also place these half walls here and also fill it with low walls. Before placing the floor, upgrade these triangles. This can for now be stone. At this point we can start on the Dropbox loot rooms in the open core. Start by placing a double door where the loot room is gonna be. Then we can put a roof on it. To the left we can make a half wall shelf, and then up top we can make the turret pod. Then do the same thing on the other side. At this point we can start roofing in the open core by placing 2 squares. Next we're gonna place all the ramps in the loot rooms. Start by placing 4 low ramps in each loot room. To do the triangle shelf, place a square, a triangle, remove the square and then place back a triangle. Next place a double door frame, a floor, a backward ramp on it, another floor, and then a high backward ramp on top of that floor. For now we can seal in this ramp with wood. Now do this on all 4 sides. To fill in the rest of the roof, place a half circle here. At this point we can start filling in the open core. Start by placing a window here in the middle. Next we can place all the furnaces. Also, if you're struggling with placing these, make sure to have the hard side towards you. You can also upgrade these to metal. Now comes the annoying part, filling in all the loot rooms. This can sometimes be a bit difficult to place, however if you just follow how I'm placing them, it should be no problem. After placing the top boxes, always make sure you can still access them. Also remember to remove these triangles here. You might want to upgrade your workbench as the next part of the base requires some blueprints. Before building the compound, I've gone ahead and upgraded everything to its final grade. All the honeycomb becomes metal as well as the roof. The whole open core upgrades to metal as well, except the triangle shelves, bottom ramps in the loot rooms and door frames. Same goes for the 2 mobility chutes, and the starter becomes almost entirely metal except TC, which upgrades to HQM, and the wall opposite your front entrance into the starter also becomes HQM. You don't have to do all of these upgrades now, but I recommend this is the time to do it. One last thing before building the compound is to upgrade the workbench to a level 2, and if you still don't have the BP frags at this point in the wipe, then I really feel for you. You can also spam garage doors basically everywhere if you haven't done so already. Almost every socket in the starter gets a garage door, every double door frame in the 2 mobility chutes except the top door as well, as in front of every loot room in the open core. Also, you can finally place this window in front of these furnaces if you haven't already. You can also place down your mobility chute respawns and locker. Now we wanna chop out the wooden walls in the open core that will later be your ankle biter. This is easily done in 2 minutes with only 2 machetes. Replace this wall with a window and put an embrasure and a window on it. Then do the same thing on the other side. Alright, I promise this time is the last thing before we get to the compound, but now we wanna place down our 2 batteries in the open core. I've gone ahead and put on two-way symmetry, and I know as a viewer this is super annoying to watch, however as a creator this is so much easier as the recordings doesn't get too long and therefore the videos doesn't get too long. After placing all the foundations for what will later be honeycomb, we can go out 2 squares and place 2 triangles on each side of the second square. Then place a door frame on either side and surround it with windows and put a roof on it. We can then fill in all the doors and windows. Next place a half wall with a floor on top of them and a low wall. Also place door frames on top of the floor. We can then build a turret pod on the gatehouse by placing 3 half walls and putting a roof on it. Also put 2 low walls in the middle here and a ramp for the drop boxes. We can also place down the shotgun traps that will cover the furnace wall, as well as fill in the door frames with chain link and put down the 2 drop boxes. Make sure you do everything we just did on the other side too. Next we want to start working on the compound bed pods. Start by placing down the locker and a garage door over it, then surround it with walls and windows and put a door frame in the middle and fill in the roof. Put single door frames to both sides of the double door, a half wall and a floor on top of the half wall. Then to cover the peak from the bed pod, we put down stone barricades on the half height floor as close towards us as possible. Then put door frames on either side. We can now fill in all the deployables. To the side of the bed pod, put down a triangle foundation, a half wall and a window on top, then connect a triangle frame from the half height floor and put a roof on it. Make sure to make this roof the default stone skin. Next we can fill in the window frame with the embrasure and put down the hidden shotgun trap, and then fill in the door frame with chain link fence. Then do the same thing on the other side. At this point we will make the turret pod, so place 3 half walls like we did on the gatehouse and fill in the roof. Again, make sure you do everything we just did to the other side as well. Placing the high large furnace is super simple. Try to get it as close in the middle as possible and then pull it slightly towards the gatehouse. Do this on all 4 sides. Putting down the compound walls, however, is a bit trickier. It could help to have a teammate with a building plan on the roof to guide you, but the idea is to form a square around the large furnace. Sometimes you will have to clip the compound wall through the wall like this. That is why it's important to put down the compound beds before the walls, as you won't be able to place them otherwise. Give yourself a pat on your shoulder, as you have now done the hardest part of the compound and only have one step left, which is also the easiest, and that is to put down the metal barricades. Start by placing down 4 triangles like shown, and then angle the barricades so they cover the gap between them and the compound walls. I think you already know what I'm gonna say next, but of course do the same thing on all 4 sides. If by now you've pissed off your neighbors, you're gonna like the next step, as it is the roof and shooting floor. And also don't worry, two-way symmetry will be turned off for the rest of the video. Start by upgrading all the honeycomb foundations, and then we can actually build up the honeycomb 2 floors in sheet metal and put 2 door frames on top. Build up the middle honeycomb 3 floors and also upgrade this to sheet metal. Do the same thing on the other side. By this point we can remove the double doors in the mobility chute and replace them with garage doors. To build the shooting floor area, we start off with a single door towards the 2 door frames we placed on top of the triangle honeycomb and 1 facing the roof. We can then start walling in the 4th floor as well as place the same single doors on the other side. To secure this area, we need to place down all the garage doors and single doors, and then after that we can also place down the drop boxes above. At this point it's time to do the same thing on the other side. Now we can create the door peaks. This step is super simple, as all you need to do to create the peak is to place 2 triangle roofs crossed on top of the frames. You could leave these as stone, but I would recommend to later upgrade them to metal. Now it's time to finally build the roof. We will start with the high ramp peaks, as otherwise you won't be able to place them later because rust. Do these on all 4 sides. Next we will build the opposite peak, with 3 frames all in sheet metal and then 2 walls behind them that will for now be stone. Then place low walls for the pancake layer and a half wall in sheet metal. Then do the same thing on the opposite side. We can then start filling in the pancake layer with triangle floors that you can all upgrade to sheet metal. And also create the roof retakes by placing metal half walls with a hard side towards the single door on all 4 sides. After that, fill in the last low wall and complete the pancake layer with 2 squares. Then place another low wall for the beds on the roof, and now we can complete the offset peak. Place a triangle roof to the right in sheet metal and 1 to the left in stone. To be able to place this floor, these 2 walls needs to be a default stone skin. After placing the floor and upgrading it, we can then upgrade the 2 walls to metal. Next, place 3 windows on top of each door frame and add a triangle shelf in the middle and surround it with triangle roofs. The next step is to make the roof triangle peak. You can also place these roofs here now. Start by placing the window and then the roof facing towards the roof entrance, and then do the same thing on all 4 sides. You can now fill in all the windows. To complete the roof, we need to build the frames for the windmill tower of the funnel bed pod. Start by placing all these frames. Then place 2 triangle frames off the side and 1 square frame with a roof on top of it facing the base, which will be your waterfall from the roof. Then raise all the frames 1 floor, then do it again on the 3 middle frames, but on the 2 frames on the sides we place a half wall in metal. Next, place a floor in the middle and 2 frames on top of the half walls. We can then build a single door for the shop and 2 windows to the side of the single door, as well as 2 triangle frames from the raised door frames, and to create a peak we fill in the windows with embrasures. It's important that you place this garage door before placing the ramp, as otherwise it won't let you place the door. We can build 3 low walls for where the windmill is going to be. This doesn't have an actual use, it's more for aesthetic purposes. And we can also place low walls to cover this peak. Next we can place our shops and siren lights to create the bridge. By this point we're so close to finishing up, however we have some small details left to add. We'll be able to power the turrets with one to place down our wind turbines, which is super easy. Next we can start with placing the turrets on the roof. Seems like I missed one of the double doors in a mobility chute, and if you did the same, it's a good time to swap it out to a garage door. If you've been able to win some oil rigs or cargoes, you can put down your tier 3 workbench up by the window in the open core, as well as 2 vending machines on the opposite side so you can flex your loot to bait that raid. I would highly recommend to upgrade these walls in all of the loot rooms, but if you're struggling with HQM, I would recommend at least upgrading the wall that isn't covered by honeycomb. Also, don't forget about the roof above the loot room. You can chop out the wood covering the open core peaks if you haven't done so already, and add the turrets in both the open core and the mobility chutes. If you have spare HQM, you can also by now put armored doors in front of each loot room in the open core. Don't forget to upgrade these windows to metal. And if you still have extra HQM lying around, you can add these armored doors in the starter to make the rocket wasting trap sting extra hard for raiders. The last thing we need to do is to place all 6 turrets in the compound, and after that, congrats, you finally built the Sergeant Shack Maxi. This was a huge project for me and it took a ton of time and work, however I could not have done it weren't for you guys watching and motivating me to make this video. Like I said in the intro, I wasn't very active this year and the channel suffered from it, however I will try to get out more uploads for you guys. However, would you like to see something other than just Rust base designs, because I feel like as a content creator I wanna do more things than strictly base designs. So please share your thoughts whether you want to see other types of content. Other than that, Merry Christmas and thanks for watching.